Hey, how are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm good, but instead of asking if you're recording, because I know you are, probably every show will be started with, my neighbors might get loud. Excuse me, because this is what's been going on upstairs lately. So,
They want us to go out with a bang. Listeners, if you're wondering, this is our not only our season finale, but this is end of an era, but be rest assured that was clunky. Rest assured that we will be back with more Speak of the Devil pod. It will just be a little different and as always getting better and better. So I really hope that when we start recording our next season, or as I'm going to call it, post season 3, maybe we'll get your neighbors yelling through the wall, "Are you recording?"
yeah, exactly.
Well, I hope that they, as well as you, have your devil horns on, maybe a cowl, maybe a blue dress. And we're going to talk a little bit about something we started our era of Speak of the Devil podcast back in season 1 with talking about the Hell Satan documentary. Now we're actually going to talk about Satanism rather than just comment on others' views of Satanism. We're going to talk today to Shane about what is Satanism? What is
That's it.
Satanism? What is Shane's views? And I have some readings that he has written, and we're going to progress with that as well. So, Shane, take the Satanism away here.
This podcast is based around the history and experiences of the infamous Shane Bugbee, recollected and retold by Shane Bugbee himself.
Who is Shane? Well, you're about to find out. I'm your host, Nannerl, and this is Speak of the Devil.
It's funny you say that, but originally when I became friends with Anton LaVey and I started broadcasting on Radio Free Satan, I would say I'm not a Satanist, I'm a Shanist. I have my own views
Oh,
myself.
interesting.
And so that's how I sort of see it like that. Satanism is something that is an individual thing. It's not easy to explain in a soundbite because there's many layers to it. But part of it is studying other philosophies and finding something that fits your life and maybe taking it from that philosophy and making it your own. I'm a Shanist because I appreciate this out of this philosophy or this out of this philosophy. But I'm also grounded with a lot of the work Anton LaVey put out there, but not all of it. But I think if I were to sum Satanism up in a soundbite, it would be the ability it would be, be your best or try to do your best and pick yourself up when you fall down. And that's what I would sum up Satanism as, is just keep trying. Maybe you can have unrealistic goals and realistic goals, and maybe you'll hit a goal, maybe you won't, but you just have to sort of deal with that. You have to roll with the punches. I know that's not a soundbite, but it's me explaining the soundbite of do the best you can. And when you fall, pick yourself up, brush yourself off, and continue to move forward. We all fall. And you have to find your success where you can. Sometimes you don't have the resources to go to college. So as I did, I went and did interviews, and that was my college. I feel I have a PhD in underground art and stuff like that at this point because I've studied it for 30 years. But that's what I did the best with my resources. Living in a car, I did a zine. So it's like, that's how I see it in the simplest of ways.
It definitely goes along with the universal shared theme of Satanism that most people have in terms of seeking knowledge. And we all have our own ways of seeking knowledge. It's quite interesting how this theme is being twisted around now. But I'm curious if this idea of kind of moving around goalposts, changing meanings to push an agenda, things like that. Was this around when you first got into Satanism, COS?
Well, certainly there was always these adversaries to the adversary. I think back then it was Temple of Set and the Shreks and stuff like that. They went off on a different tangent. But I think there's a group involved in this world that is they want to control, and I think it's based in fear. I think these are the people who get a Baphomet shirt to scare their neighbors and to fit in, and they need to control or be controlled. And then there's a group of them that are courageous and they're pushing for liberties like trans rights, stuff like that. I think that's the other side of. There's two sides in this satanic world or philosophy, and I think there's only two sides. Maybe there's a third. I think we used to call it the third perspective, Satanism, but I see it like that. When I meet Satanists, they're one or the other. They're fearful. They project that they're tough. Well, I'm a Satanist. They have all the angry look, and they're angry, and they want to control. We need control, like LaVey. He wanted cops on every corner. And I don't agree with that. I'm more of I don't agree with that concept that LaVey had. But I love Anton LaVey too. So
I think his Baphomet pendant necklace was his big cats he owned. His scary image, having a bodyguard. He had a different means of it, even though he's the one who put together this philosophy to market it. It was a form of protection, I think, to have not only the symbol of a lion, being a native Chicagoan, and the lion's paw, all these different symbolisms toward that, owning lions, owning leopards, panthers. I think that may have been his form, kind of like the old ladies in Florida with gators in their kitchen.
Yeah, I always saw that stuff with LaVey as also, including what you said, is the huckster, the circus performer, the person who was playing a trick, getting attention so he could sell you something. And a lot of artists from that era had these huckster moments where they were like my friend Dave Archer. He's a mentor of mine. He paints with a Tesla coil. He can do the same stuff with a straw and air, blowing an air compressor, but he does that as a gimmick. Like, boom, it's a hustle. It's to get you to pay attention to him and then buy his stuff because it's special. And so there's part of that, though. That's part of that aesthetic or that circus, that trick. There's the tricking people. There's part of that in Satanism with the lipstick, makeup, all of that. There's part of that understanding how to trick people, understanding what a wig does, the power of a blonde wig, as you've brought up. Though that's a satanic thing. It's like, well, this is how people react, so I got to deal with these people, and I'm going to get myself some lines and a blonde fucking wig, and they're going to pay attention to my art,
Do you think that Satanists project a scary image also, sort of like you already see me as scary, so I might as well be a monster and embrace it sort of way?
Well, yes, I do think that. I think at the root, how I saw Anton LaVey's Church of Satan, especially because of the era it came out of, was a political and an artistic movement, but an individual political movement, not a political movement where he's rallying people to vote for one person. It's a political statement in and of itself to wear a Baphomet shirt outside in a Christian world. That's a political statement. And I also see it as an artist, like a bold performance almost, or something like that. The theater of the absurd. We're all on the stage, and so he started this with the Black Panthers and the Yippies when all that stuff was happening, and his protest. The thing that drew me was all churches should be taxed, and I really like that point of view as well from LaVey. And so I think there are people involved in Satanism that do that as well. Like, I'm already scary, so I'm going to present this scary vibe. I think at the best, those folks are young-minded. I think what I would define as a Satanist is someone who's scary looking but wears pink, or tries to be circusy, or wears a big, is trying to do something different. And they're not calling themselves a Satanist, but they are. They're like it's like by the book almost. They're doing this shit, and it's like, but they figure out a way to not to manipulate, to manipulate and get what they want, or to get their needs met without shitting on others in a kind way, not angry and I'm scary, so I'm going to scare you. That is one way to do it. I understand that part, and I've done that myself when I was younger. It didn't get me as far as being charismatic and being myself. I don't think wearing a black outfit all the time to define myself as a Satanist is a clown suit. I do wear black because I like it, but I don't feel trapped in I have to wear black because I am a public Satanist. That's nonsense. And I think a lot of people get trapped in that cage.
Black is the cheapest clothing to assemble together because it all meshes well together.
Yeah.
And it's slimming. And if you are a classical musician, you can write off your clothing as a tax write-off. So
nice.
I see a lot of appealing reasons to wear black. I think that black is the easiest and it transcends different subcultures as well as like working cultures as well. It's seen as efficient. It's seen as sleek, hip.
Yeah, certainly. But we're talking about individual choices now, and I'm just talking about it in a broad sense. Like the satanic world is known for wearing black, and I find a lot of people who are projecting this image or this identity as being much like a Christian. I don't think there's anything wrong with wearing a solid white suit and being a Satanist, or a pink suit or a yellow suit. Capone wore a canary yellow suit, and no one said shit to him because he would shoot them in the face.
My point in pointing that out and wearing black, I think, is that it's not original to wear all black. And so it's quite compelling to me that this form of conformity still exists, and it's almost taboo to bring up, like you're saying, wearing a canary yellow suit. Even right now, when there's so many different flavors of Satanism compared to 20 years ago, and some of it, I'm still unsure if it truly is Satanism.
Right, and I think what I'm talking about with the pink suit or the canary yellow suit is basically those dams are about to break. I'm the canary in the coal mine, as you say most times. So I'm observing something that's about to break anyway. I think, and it's with the younger people, and I think younger people are going to take it, just as I've seen it with people that I've met that are very satanic, but they just don't play the part. They don't fit in a satanic identity, but they are moving along, getting their needs met. They're successful in their goals as best they can. Life is a motherfucker. And you got to be able to deal with the kicks to the throat. You got to be able to deal with that kind of stuff. And I understand. I've been knocked down plenty. And I think there's something about that philosophy or whatever that, and I understand LaVey says you're born, not made. But I do find Satanism as a self-help book, even if the person isn't a Satanist at heart or born a Satanist, it still helps people move along. I think it helps people survive. I think it's helped a lot of people that have been scared, victimized on the margins, feel like I'm going to be strong, I'm going to project this. He's given The Satanic Witch is a great book for women to read, to survive and navigate. And I think it's just like it saved a lot of lives. People wouldn't think that you'd say Satanism saves lives. I say art saves lives, but I've seen through, 30 years of studying this, that Satanism has indeed saved lives, has indeed taken a criminal or a person that is really down and focused them in on surviving and doing the best they can. It has also been a mask for criminals. much like, like because people will use it and say I'm satanic, so I can go kill this person, or I can hurt people unrepentantly. And so there's a yin and the yang of that, or whatever. I don't know if I'm using that correctly, that terminology, but there's this.
We got
There's
as above and so below.
Yeah, duality. Yes, right. As above is so below. So it's like, I see it in both ways. I've seen it save, and I've seen it used as a mask, much like punk rock. Like people would make artwork, and it'd be sloppy and naive, and not naive, but sloppy and just not great. And they go, "It's punk," and I'm like, "No, it's sloppy. Punk isn't sloppy. It's calculated. It's that punk rock is calculated mess, not slop." But people would have put the term punk rock on slop, and it was like, no, you're downgrading the word. And I think the criminal Satanist, the Satanist that has a mental illness, downgrades the whole thing. When
you're talking the Richard Ramirez's.
Yeah, or even people we've spoke about in the season, like people that are, I don't know if we spoke about this on the air or not, but mentally ill people not being accepted into the BDSM community in Los Angeles.
Yes.
Those folks that and it's nothing wrong with being mentally ill. It's when you're not getting treated, or you're treating yourself with a candle and incense and sage, and it's not working, but you think it's working, but everyone's like, man, motherfucker's still crazy, and my heart's out to you because I feel it. I got mental problems myself. But putting on a Baphomet shirt only, hey man, don't do that. Don't bring me down to your pit. I'm climbing out of this crab pot, Don't fucking bring us all down because you think this is hiding your mental illness. It's not. It's not hiding your criminal activity. And it's just making us look bad. And it's hard to say us within the word Satanism, though. It's really hard because there's not an us in there, but there is, because it's a word an umbrella we all hide under. Don't hide under, but it's an umbrella we all live under.
Do you still call yourself a Satanist?
If you're a Christian. If you're a Satanist, no, I'm just Shane. But if you're going to come to me and like knock on my door and say, "Hi, I'm from the Baptist Church," I'm going to say, "Hey, I'm from the Church of Satan." And they're going to walk backwards.
You want some Oreos?
Right, because let's be honest, Satanism only works in a Christian world. It's a 0-1 dynamic. It's not really, the philosophy goes beyond that, though. That's why I like it. Like I always thought, boy, you could take the Satanic Bible, take all the S words out of it, and put LaVey like in a gardener's costume, like planting flowers, and it's a self-help book. It really is. It's a self-help book. And so the word Satanism and Satan only exist in this society, in this culture, because of Christianity.
In our episode before, we were talking about Varg of Burzum, and something that you mentioned that I had no idea about is how Satanism is a white religion, implying that he doesn't see himself as white. And this is something that I've actually struggled with accepting myself. It's very easily accepted how Christianity is a spread of whiteness. Throughout history, it is whiteness. It doesn't matter how it is, with like 2 or 3 very specific examples of churches being an ethnic identity. For the most part, Christianity, Catholicism is whiteness. And hearing someone else refer to Satanism as a white religion, do you think that this falls into it? Because I feel like the more I hear about it and the more I try to study this, whether between you and myself or my own readings, I can't help but agree with him a little bit.
Oh, well, yes and no. It's such a young religion that we are still working. Right now, the conversation is getting larger about privilege and how white people hire white people because, not even because of a conscious bias, but because they see someone that looks like them, so they relate. So it's like this you have to do blind interviews and stuff in order to get the actual best person for the job. But when you see someone that looks like you accidentally or subconsciously fall into liking them more. It's one of these weird things that they're studying now. I don't know. I'm not studying this, so maybe I'm wrong about some of this. But
I think it's birds of a feather and intuitive to humans.
When you ask about Satanism, I can guarantee when LaVey started it, who were his major figureheads? A woman, and a black man. So those were the two people that brought LaVey all of his popularity, was Sammy Davis Jr. and Jane Mansfield. Yet those folks within the satanic world, I understand and see a lot of them have been downgraded or not accepted or accepted, but they'll take their money, but they don't give a fuck about it. They're not up in the high ranks. And I've always had a problem with that, because I see LaVey for the people who raised me up, which were white Panthers that were friends of Black Panthers. When I saw Sammy Davis Jr. and Jane Mansfield, I saw hippies, I saw yippies, I saw Black Panthers, I saw a movement that we were all together in. And so, I think it's a young religion, and I don't think it hasn't stopped you as a person of color. And so I also think that's within the spirit of a Satanist is the will. The will is very strong. And I think right now it looks like that, but I don't think it's going to look like that for long. I think you're going to see people of color dressed in any fucking thing they want, blinged out, whatever they want. It's going to be cool. It's going to be fucking real cool. It's not going to be this all black looking like something that's the opposite of the Catholic Church. Like, we're scary. It's going to be more, we're fun. Not we're scary, but we're fun. Because we are. We're fun people. We're good time. We are good time.
We've spoke a lot about Satanism being of the adversary, and it does amaze me that satanic circles, whether they are an organized religion of Satanism, a satanic podcast, or just groups of friends, that it still does seem to be the thing where you turn toward the Applebees, the comfortable people, and the adversaries just don't exist in those groups. There's this culture of, I'm sorry to use the word groupthink, but it's the glad game. Everybody wants to agree with each other. No one wants any suppressive people.
That's the Satanic Temple influence. That's their garbage. Like the garbage is saying you don't have to be a Satanist to be a Satanist.
So the disagreements like that have existed pre-TST then. There have been quite different people in a room.
Oh, yeah. In the Satanic Temple, when I first got in, it was amazing. And it was diverse. It was a lot more diverse than I see today. But I don't want to critique them in today's standards because I don't really pay attention to the Church of Satan that much anymore. Okay. Like I'm not involved with them. But I know in the earlier days it was mainly white, but Anton LaVey was Jewish, so he's sort of a marginal person as well. Jewish folks have issues in America too. So when I was involved in that stuff, there was a lot of different ideals. Like you had people that were very hard right wing and very hard left wing, and we would just it felt like, okay, how I would compare it today is it was a philosophical meetup group, the app Meetup. Like it was just like philosophy meetup, and you sit there and talk about things and challenge each other with these different philosophies. Stoicism, I'm just Darwin, and you just keep going back and forth. A lot of people clung to Darwin, but not everyone. And so now you are correct in what it seems like on the internet, where it seems that way. But most of the older school people that I know aren't really like that. They can listen to anything and laugh it off, or just say, yeah, not into that. They're more libertarian.
Okay.
Most of older people are libertarian, like it's not my business. It's not my business. And I would say I find the ideals of libertarianism to be interesting, but I don't think we can get there without a socialist world where we all have an even playing field, where there are no margins. It's just one playing field. We all have access to school. We all have access to health care. We all have access to these things that would enlighten us and better our lives. And that would be a start to having a better society, I think. So I'm more of a socialist Satanist, where there are the other people, a lot of libertarians.
It seems like a lot of the roots of LaVey's Satanism rely upon not necessarily social Darwinism, but let's go ahead and use hierarchies. That there's presented these hierarchies in life, and to climb up and defy these hierarchies, you have to claw your way to the top. You got to get there yourself, whatever means it takes.
Well, if we're talking about LaVey's philosophy, it's not really that way. It's okay. but it is. I get what you're saying, but you can interpret it that way. But I think what
I wasn't done with my question, but go ahead.
okay.
No, please go ahead.
When you talk about stratification, it is reaching your natural level.
Okay.
And then there's also the part of accepting who and what you are and being happy with it. Like if you're an ugly person, accept it and be a witchy person, I think he speaks of.
Uh-huh.
And so, that's what I see in that. I think a lot of people see it as I have to be on top to be everyone in Satanism has to be an alpha. And that's pretty ridiculous concept. We don't all run the same.
So if actually you've answered my question by cutting me off. So if everyone thinks they're an alpha, but not everyone can be an alpha, what is the solution to it?
To being an alpha?
No, if it's absurd for everyone to be an alpha, and not everyone can be an alpha, is it a try your best? Just be happy with what you got and keep pushing it?
That's within LeVay's philosophy. Certainly, I think I think we wouldn't understand. We can theorize, but I think until we all have an even playing field, we can't see how that'll sort out. Like, will people be happy with a small place, a small little apartment because they can't do it. They can't run as fast as the next person, and the next person has a bigger place or more cars or more stuff because they ran faster. I don't know how that'll sort out, but I think that seems fair if we all have a even playing field. But the system has been rigged. The polls have been greased where poor people who are smart can't get ahead. People, as we're recently talking about, people of color can't get ahead because there's a bias against them. Women can't get ahead because there's a bias against them. And that's bullshit. The best person for the gig, the best person, that's what we want. Because I think at that point, for me, looking far into the future, the best person for the gig, no matter who it is, brings me along, and I have less pain in my life, no matter if I'm living in a studio apartment and just getting by because I didn't want to go to school and I don't want to do that shit and I don't want to read books. I just want to wash dishes. That's fine. You're happy doing that and you're happy just having a simple life. Kick ass. But I think I would have a painless life even in that situation because but everyone was able to run their own speed, and the alphas were pulling this whole pack along. They were feeding us. They are taking care of things. A lot of people, I think, in tech talk about right now, really it only would take about 10%, the top 10% to work. The rest don't have to work because the top 10% can provide everything for everyone. And so that's sort of how I would see it with socialism. And if we all had our decisions, we'd have more of a top. We wouldn't have a top 10%. We'd have a top 30%. A third of us would be up there, challenging, being scientists, evolving our society. That's a sliver of how I see Satanism is not only do your best, but we're trying to evolve. We are about science and questioning and philosophy. So we're trying to add to things versus take them as religious, if that makes sense.
That's a really interesting perspective. I'm really glad you clarified that. I don't think that this topic is covered enough by others, and it seems like a lot of young voices are starting to say this, but they all have a very political bend to it that isn't quite satanic. So I think coming from yourself, who has seen multiple perspectives, it's very important to listen to OGs in what they have to say. You said, let me just clarify for everybody, how long have you been studying Satanism?
Well, for about 30 years.
About 30 years, okay.
At least 30 years, 30 years.
Okay.
31, I'm 51, 31.
So as someone who's seen this happen, we've talked before about how there was a rule within COS about you couldn't discuss Satanism over the internet, like you couldn't do the internet arguments. How do you feel about Reddit and the Satanism thread?
Oh, I think that's half-assed. It's nothing there. I wish it was what I thought it would be, which is a philosophical kind of thing, but it's basically, it's nothing. It's garbage. It's
It's a
the lowest.
sandbox, I feel like.
It's like the lowest form. It's not. It's people flexing. It's all this weird shit. It's fashion. It's no one having a decent conversation like we used to have on the Church of Satan news groups, the news boards that we'd have, private ones. Those were great, and we'd challenge each other and free to hate each other or like each other. I really like that kind of stuff. I like a philosophical group, and it's not that anymore. It's fashionable, and a lot of younger people who are branching off because of this. The example that I helped set with the Satanic Temple. There's a lot of little subgroups now, Royal Lord of the Satanist, and all this weird shit, but they're all led, what I've seen at least, by people who want to control things or want to push their individual politics into the sphere, and not, we want to push philosophy into the sphere. We want to talk about these things, these ugly truths, and this bright light. There's the both in Satanism. I'm more Luciferian.
What is Luciferian for people who have never heard this term?
I'm the bringer of light. I'm just saying I'm more on a positive side. There's people who look at it like that. And so I'm a positive Satanist.
You want a better outcome overall.
Yeah, I want freedom. I want liberty. I'm not for control. I don't like control. I'm against authority. I buck authority at every chance. And it's probably one of my worst, soft spots, because if someone comes at me with a bold statement or being authority, I'm all of a sudden getting on defense, and I'm ready to start fighting back, even if they're right. Like, I'm ready to start fighting, man. Once you get
me too,
get that tone with me, I'm like, what the fuck did you say? And you could be right, but that's a weak spot for me. But that's how far I am over here. Like, I'm almost an anarchist. Like, I think anarchy, I think art, and I think Satanism are all the same almost. They're very similar. They're right here. And right in between them, there's this expression, there's this freedom, there's this lack of control, there's this thought, there's this challenge of each other. It's individual, nuanced, circumstantial existence. That's what Satanism is, or part of it. Individual, nuanced, circumstantial existence. And then there's the creativity of it. There's the science of it. And then there's the anarchy of it. The fuck you, don't do it. What is the, I don't know, grandpa music, dad music. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. Rage Against the Machine.
So I have a couple writings that you have put together, and some of them have to do with what we just talked about. So I'm going to actually read one or two of these, because I think that they are incredibly relevant, but also allows you to also have the chance to reiterate or emphasize anything that may not be altogether clear. So the first one I'm going to read is called "A Satanist Can Be Defined Simply in Two Parts." A Satanist can be defined simply in two parts. 1. A person who has suffered trauma, looking for protection, creating a dark front to scare those they perceive as prefectory. This Satanist usually suffered from a mental illness of various degrees. The number one satanic personality usually grows up to embrace a science-based agnosticism, Buddhism, or art as religion. These Satanists are life-based. They seek to evolve. They seek joy. The second type. A person seeking power, a social or political climber. They are not on top, but desperately want to be. They are proper-mannered, well-read, and have followed all the rules of success, but haven't gotten to where they feel like they deserve. The submissive trying to rule from the bottom. The older of number two satanic people, the older of the number two satanic person are dangerous. These Satanists are control-based. They seek power, revenge, and total control and total war if they don't get their way. Adult babies and wannabe politicians. I have to wonder, did Penny Lane address Doug's work with... we want to
Those are
stop right
different.
there and continue.
Yeah, that's
Okay, okay, I'm going to stop right there, but I do want to talk about that at some point because that sounded really spicy. But let's stop right there because that's a good stopping point.
Yeah. That was the chunk, the crux of what I was saying. Yeah, right. The Penny Lane stuff is, fuck her. Bring up that name. Anyway, so yeah, I can't believe I wrote that actually when you read it back, but yeah, that's good. I'm saying myself is good. I agree with it.
Pat yourself on the back.
Yeah, I think the older people are those older people that I've met become very when I was younger, it was communicated to me that when you get older, you get jaded. And I think that's what I'm saying there. But within the Satanists, when a Satanist gets jaded, they actually get jagged and really jagged and sharp and angry. But they disguise it with a wolf in sheep's clothing, let's say. But they're looking to take it out on anyone who's better than them because they feel justified. And I think a lot of their justification is that identity of being a Satanist, like they're climbing and they're not able to climb, and they haven't understood about stratification, let's say. Like, I get our society is rigged to a point where there's a lot of unjust in where people are right now. Mm-hmm. But we're talking about this in an ideal situation. And
yes, and it seems like those people from definition number 2 come from demographically privilege, not necessarily wealth, but these are people who expect all the lights to light up because that was the dream they were promised.
Absolutely. That's like what I've heard that discussed recently in recent history about the mass shooters, the white male mass shooters. Like, they were promised dominance and they don't have it anymore. Because the idea is now everyone's, trying to have access, bringing women, people of color up. And so the white man doesn't have that anymore. And so that's how they see it. They don't have it anymore. And so I agree with you. Yeah, it's mostly people of privilege that take on these ideas. And it's like probably somewhere in there like a mental illness or a weird, like those are the fanatics or the weirdos that join religions. Like they take Christianity the same kind of way or whatever they're into. Like they take it and they turn it into something that's gross, an identity that is justifiable to hurt people or justifiable to use against people. They use their belief system as a way to have a bias against people instead of just keeping it in their home, like their sexuality, let's say.
Sort of the us versus them Satanists that you see targeting people because they are the enemy. Grr, let's all growl at the Christians across the street. Instead of just having fun with it and putting an upside down cross in front of their house and, just living their lives.
Right. Exactly that.
You were talking about those crab pots, and it sounds like definition number 2, they seek to role play the literal biblical roles of, like, say, Cain or the snake.
Yeah, exactly. They are all of that. They are very a character. What do they say? You become a character of yourself, or a character.
Yeah.
They become something like that where it's very silly. It'll be brought up on Comedy Central or Adult Swim at some point, and they'll be laughed at. There was, that's what happens. You get involved in a Adult Swim interview, and you look like a fool because you're a character of yourself. You don't play along. You don't ride the wave. You don't surf the wave of life, man. That's what we're doing. We're surfing, and you can't always get up on the board, yo. That's it.
You gotta get by. Do. So, were these definition number 1 and 2, are these things that you grew to understand or grew to kind of figure out, or is this something you caught on to early on?
Oh no, this is all recent writing. So this is stuff that has come to me recently, over the last 5 years, let's say. Mm-hmm. But I've paid such attention to this especially since hanging out with Anton LaVey, part of my thing is like maybe with the ADD or whatever these special powers I have, special magical powers some people call deficiency or whatever, ADD and stuff. I focus in on something and I just study it like it's be one thing. I have, and you know, and so I've submerged myself in that world enough to see these things, and I'm like, yeah, this is where I feel like I'm at the age where I add to the religion or I add to the philosophy. I don't get religious in it and just follow LaVey's thing, like, you know, like his salad dressing test. I think is a great thing. I think the blue cheese thing is fucking awesome. But I think that is LaVey's sense of humor. Like, you know, that's him putting it in there and just being fun. And that's, people miss the fun of that stuff. And they're looking, I know the Satanic Temple has taken that and used it as something to mock him. Like he's not science minded. He's using salad dressing as a
How
test.
can you be like criticizing someone for being science minded when you load boxes in the back of Walmart?
Well, I get that. But the Satanic Temple as a whole is a broad,
Okay.
You know, like they're the group, I guess, from the hierarchy. You know, they're making, they're looking for things to use as marketing and to get a leg up or to leverage.
So science-minded is a political jargon. It's like a stance to make yourself sound smart. Right,
and they're not. They're missing. They're the people that are not really fun. Where they're missing LaVey's fun. He was having fun. The salad dressing test is hilarious. What?
Look who's in charge.
Right. But the salad dressing test is fucking hilarious,
yes,
you know?
Yes.
But when I was younger, I looked at it almost as serious. Like, I'm like, oh, that motherfucker's putting Thousand Island on their dressing. They're solid. They're dominant. But I found that to not be true. You know, whatever. He's a short order cook. He was showing off. He was being fun. And maybe there is some truth to his theory. Maybe there's not. You know, I don't know I think we're more complex than that as human beings. I think we're more complex than just being dominant or just being submissive.
What kind of salad dressing do you choose?
All of the above, but I like mostly dominant salad dressings, but once in a while I dig a blue cheese, you know, so, you know, I'm not going to lie.
I like a nice crotch salad too, myself.
Yeah. And I think there is something to LaVey's philosophy about, you know, when you project dominance on the outside, you're submissive on the inside and vice versa. I think there's something to that.
Oh.
But for me at this age, it's my turn to add to a philosophy or say, here, I've studied this philosophy long enough where I'm going to interject these few things. And I think that's what a philosophy is. It grows. Religions die. Religions are dead philosophies. Religions are things that stop and have rules. And I don't see that with Satanism, though you will hear that from other satanic groups. We have these 7 rules. We have these 9 rules. Yeah, that's fine. Those are fine. You have 9 suggestions, buddy. And I think that's what I told LaVey when we were talking about it. We had the nine, whatever it was, rules. And I'm like, I'm going to take those as 9 suggestions. And he laughed because that's how I took them. I don't take them as tenets or rules. I take them as, that's a nice 9 suggestions. I'll take what I want. Thank you very much. Maybe, you know.
Why would you follow all the rules if you're in a religion that is a symbol of rebellion?
Well, I don't know why you'd follow all the rules with whatever philosophy you're following. You know, that's why I say there's a difference between philosophy and religion. I think Christians who are philosophical Christians can grow that philosophy, can look at it like some are trying to do now as far as Christianity goes. They're like, no, quit picking on gay people. Quit this. You know, like that. I'm not with that. Mm-hmm. I'm okay with abortion. And they're Christians, but they're okay with a woman's right and their body is theirs. And they're okay with people of color and they're okay with gay people, but they're Christians. So I see them as evolving a religion, a philosophy, versus subscribing to a religion where it stopped in the 50s or the 40s or the 30s. And, you know, I'd hate to think that Satanism has stopped in the 2000s because, you know, of the Satanic Temple or whatever, and all these people are getting firm on their beliefs and rules and taking sides. It's a philosophy to me. And it's a religion to mock things as a artistic movement and a political movement. It is, we're a religion, but after all that that curtain that's up behind the curtain. We just like to get together and talk about taboo shit.
And that seems like that's an ongoing pattern of the underground art movement that we spoke about previously.
Right, and even anarchy. That's what I'm saying. Those three, like you go behind the curtain with anarchists, and there's so many different anarchists. Well, I'm okay with technology. I'm not. There are just so many different anarchists, and so it's like such an interesting debate when you get into those. It's really interesting. And when you get into underground art, there's such an interesting conversation. And when you get with certain Satanists, you can have such an interesting conversation. And then it's gotten more and more tame and boring. And oh my God, I've read this already. You're just reading me the book.
Do you think it's a product of the internet and social networking that's created this culture?
Well, I guess I'm not really sure. I think the internet's too young to understand where it's affecting people or not. I'm not really sure, but I think pre-internet, maybe it moves faster, but I think it's a human thing. People want, like I say, there's people who want to control, and those people a lot of times gain power because they're not so lackadaisical as the people who just want liberty. Like they're like, no, I want to control your liberty. And so they really work at climbing and being, going to war and all this shit, where there's another group that doesn't. And I think it's weird how that works, but that's how that works. That's why I don't believe might is right all the time. Like that kind of stuff isn't right, because it's usually like we have a country in America that is more liberal than anything, but conservatives get in power because they do dirty deeds done dirt cheap. They climb and they get into power and they're just total assholes. And that's unfortunate that the liberal side of things, they're more into the pleasure of the flesh. We're having barbecues. We're wanting to see our friends. We're going to concerts. We're making artwork. Next thing we know, we got an authoritarian in fucking charge. So it's like, oh, God, what did we do? Oh, we were too busy drinking wine and eating too much garlic.
You have a bunch of Satanists having blue cheese salad, and then you get another group that comes along and says, we're science-based, so no fun in art ever, or we're going to tell you what books to read.
Right. Exactly.
So
really it's a satanic group should be, here's a foundation, grow it. Let's see how you grow it. They should be challenging their membership to go, challenge us on this idea, this suggestion. But when they say the rules and all this, it's like, that's bullshit right there. It should be, these are our 9 suggestions, and these are our 7 suggestions. I think the Satanic Temple uses the number 7, which is a Christian 7. That's a Christian number. And so that's a weird tip off there with Kevin's stuff, I guess. But anyway, mocking the satanic beliefs and bringing Christianity into it.
You should definitely add to the library rather than have 2 books catching dust on the shelf.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what all members of a philosophical club should be doing, is discussing things where people are going, Nannerl, that's very interesting what you just said. I've never heard that before. That's what I like in conversations. And that's how when I saw the Satanism as the best it was that when we were getting together and just challenging each other and getting in fights. We get in brutal fights. Fuck you, leave. You have drinking whiskey, you leave, you slam the person's door, you go home and you think about things, and 3 days later you're calling them and saying, you know what, you were right. I thought about what you were saying that I was arguing about so adamantly. But as I think about it, I can't beat you. You win. That's a good idea. And so that's what I like, about it.
You're challenging yourself and making your brain grow in that way, I feel like. It's a form of exercise. It's sparring.
Right. It's challenging yourself. You're not looking to win. You're looking to understand and be enlightened. Right. Exactly. You're not like, I'm mad because you won the argument. I'm mad because we don't agree at this moment and I don't understand it. And it took me a time, just like when I get something from someone's going to feed me something. They're like, oh, this is garlic and chocolate mixed. I'm like, sounds disgusting, but I'll try it. And then I try it and it's good.
Yeah.
I've never garlic and chocolate. And so someone gives you an idea you can't wrap your mind around. You might get a little upset. But there's no reason to sit there stubborn and sit there like that and always say they're wrong. You might as well admit, like, damn, that motherfucker got me. That's a good idea. It just made you a better person. Right. And that's part of the goal, is to be a better person. Like you're saying, sparring.
humans have evolved from acquiring knowledge, challenging themselves. Think of early man, fire bad! Early Shane touched
Right.
that fire and got mad and smashed a rock, but then he thought about it and then he doesn't touch the fire anymore. He touched it with his food.
Exactly. When the internet started growing, when I was younger, that's how I saw people. Everyone was so anti-internet, even publishers. I was the first publisher online amongst my peers. They were all like anti-the man, anti-internet. I'm like, this is not going anywhere. Like, I'm getting on here now to understand it. Like, but they were all treating it the same way, like fire bad, internet bad. And I'm like, I get what you're saying, but at the same time, I understand this isn't going anywhere. And when I read about it, what it could be, it sounds pretty neat. So for me, the internet just sounded neat. Like, I'm going to be able to talk to you like we're doing now. That's fucking rad. Like,
exactly. And the same people who said fire bad about the internet, fire bad about the internet are on the internet right now.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd rather be that like I said, there's the two Satanists. There's the one that's progressive and wants to move forward, come what may, go through the fire and forge new. And there's people who are afraid, but
suppressive.
Depressive. They won't admit it. And they're just like controlling. They want to control you. No, you're wrong. No, don't. What the fuck? You saying a Satanist? Are you going to tell me don't do something? Motherfucker, you better put that in a suggestive phrase. We're going to have enemies. We're going to be enemies now. Don't tell me not to do something. And so it sort of becomes childlike that almost, but that's how I see it. I'm part of a progressive wing. I want to move forward. And I'm not looking to, the reason I left Doug and the Satanic Temple stuff was because it was going to be a fun thing we did, an action to get attention for something, and he wanted to turn it into a religion for money's sake. So it was like, I'm not looking to control people, dude. Like, that's the wrong thing. And you're only using this word Satanism to leverage very specific politics. That's not what this is. It's individual choice. It's individual politics. It's, there can be Satanists who are against abortion. There can be Satanists that are against your ideas. That's the idea here. We challenge each other and we grow together.
Do you think that groups such as the one you're talking about form these groups with set rules and like this idea of suppressing new ideas to make sure that the leaders stay the smartest ones in the room?
Absolutely. I think their intent is clear. They are looking to have control and power, and they think they're climbing some mystical ladder in history. And I think they're just tools of the system. They become caricatures. Is that the word? Caricatures.
Caricature. Yeah.
Caricature. Okay.
Yes. You said it. That's okay.
Okay. They become a joke. They become something people can laugh at. And I'm not with that. Like, if you're going to laugh at me, I want to tell a good joke. I don't want you to laugh at me because of I'm wearing a cape and I'm swinging a sword around thinking I'm having magic powers or whatever they're doing. And yeah, I think basically what I'm trying to answer without getting on this rant is that, yes, I do think these people have an intent, and their intent is not pure. There's no fucking way, because it's a pretty simple philosophy. It's not, there's complexity and there's simplicity in it. It's just basically about freedom, liberty, making individual choices and undertaking responsibility for individual choices, stuff like that. And so there's, people are just using, because of the internet, they're able to market it in a short Twitter sense using the word Satanism, and it's attractive to people. Church of Satan originally you had to apply for and you had to pay money for and all that. When you come up with an idea where you don't have to be a Satanist to be a Satanist, and no one's catching on to that, you're being a tool, you're being used by two people in a hierarchy or three people in a hierarchy that are going to stay there. They're only going to use the worst of the worst. Soldiers are always poor people. Majority of soldiers are poor people who are lost and have no other choice. And that's the same thing with these groups. They pick on the poor, the juggalos, the white trash, the black trash, whatever. They pick on the lowest of the low. And that's coming from like the recent group, a neuroscience scientist or neurologist, whatever he is, This person studies the mind. He understands he's going after depressive people. He understands what's going to attract them, and he
Someone
understands
very
how.
obsessed with the process temple and other mind control and organized religions and cults.
Right. So a lot of these people that start up these satanic groups are looking to not only have power and control, which some people could look at as admirable, they're looking to exploit the weak. And for me, that is so anti-satanic. Because why would I want to eat the weak? I am what I eat. I want to eat what's above me, or I want to eat what's on the same level as me. I want to eat, and I don't want to eat them. I want to eat with them. I don't even like competition, actually, but it exists. So I see it as there's a lot of people in that second category I was talking about that are wanting to exploit weak people, wanting to exploit desperate people, and I find that to be repulsive. I don't understand that. That's basically what I did with a soda pop company, but it wasn't something I did with Satanism. I'm looking to sell soda to anyone, but Satanists aren't anyone. Well, I don't know. I'm not looking to build an army, and that's what these people try to do is build an army. And I've got 100, like it's gang stuff. It's gang mentality. It's desperate gang mentality.
It reminds me of imperialism or colonization, where
Yeah.
look at third world countries that were influenced by the Spanish or the Dutch with Christianity or Catholicism. And example, Philippines.
Okay.
It's an incredibly poor country that is very swept by Catholicism still to this day, even though it keeps them poor. And it exploits that. They're quite exploited by this culture. And it's very much like that. It seems like the things that TST might be selling to very poor white trash might be not good for poor white trash. And there's other forms of Satanism that might improve them. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think when you explain it, what colonialism and all that, when you explained yourself there, so I can understand it, yeah, I would agree totally. It is like a Catholic church or someone exploiting the weak. That's why I want to have nothing to do with that shit. It's like, that's not, dude, no fucking way. Like when I was with LeVay before I took Doug under my wings and all that shit, Lucy and Greaves, before I took him under my wings, like I'm hanging out with really fucking smart people, doctors, lawyers, scientists, judges that were Satanists. And they're like high in philosophy. We're having great conversations. We're challenging each other. There wasn't any bullshit going on. It was stimulating. I was excited. Like, I want to go hang out with these folks. Oh, they're going to be in town? Bring them by. Let's have dinner. Like, I was so excited. And then when LeVay left us, it started to become more and more of a job because there was people that were getting involved that were young. I just want to say they're young-minded. I don't want to say they're dumb, but, when you get older and there's a younger person and they're just acting the way you did 20 years ago, it's not exciting. That's all I'm saying. It's not exciting for me. It's boring. And then with the Satanic Temple, it's become like, oh, you're kidding me. The people I see calling themselves a Satanist, like, yeah, I don't want to say two words to you. Like, you don't have much to say to me, but what's on TV that night or something. You're going to tell me about what's on TV. You're going to regurgitate what you heard on your talk radio show or what your temple leader told you to say. Fuck you. I'm looking for something that's like original. Like, so I don't know.
I think that the people who are afraid of individual thought or risque ideas, it seems like a lot of new Satanists are quite uncomfortable with wild card ideas or anything left field of what they just learned. And, listeners, if you're Googling my street cred, I have no street cred for this stuff. This is something that I happened to happen upon one day and agree with a lot of things because it went hand in hand with my life. I don't know if I count as a Satanist, and I don't care if I do, but I am fascinated by it, and I continue to pay attention to it because it's more ingrained into American society than Christianity is. Sorry, not sorry. And I think that it's finally coming to a head and becoming a conversation in the mainstream, which is amazing.
You saying I don't know is one of the greatest things a Satanist can say. That's what scientists, I don't know. I don't know. That's beautiful. And I would say you have a lot of street cred as far as Satanism go. You're working with me. So you have street cred. You do. I think so.
Did you all hear that? Shane said I'm beautiful. Shane thinks I'm pretty.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm going to take everything out of context.
I think inside and out, you are a very beautiful person.
Thank you.
You're a very smart person. And I think you understand this philosophy better than most that have studied it a long time. And so it's, I'm happy to have met you, and I'm happy to talk about this stuff with you. And that's not that it makes me feel old school, like I'm talking to some old school Satanists that are like, yeah, let's get this on. Let's have an argument. Let's talk about shit. Let's challenge each other. Let's do this. So that's how I feel. I don't feel like I'm dealing with, something, so I think you got a lot of cred myself. I'll give you cred. I'll give you some cred. There you go. I got a lot of cred, so I'll give you some of mine.
Oh, thank you. I'll still share it with you. I can't finish all of it.
I'll grow more. Take it.
I have another reading I want to do. However, before I do that, I can't help but and I don't want to present this as a direct comparison because it's nothing of the same. But something I think of when I think of how old school Satanists versus very recent as of this year as of this past year because you saw a documentary Satanists is Burning Man culture. The first generation of Burning Man people are not huggy kissy people, but they included everyone and they have this experiences with inclusion and escapism, and they really were a diverse bunch of people who could be quite curmudgeon-y on the internet. And you look at Burning Man now with the celebrity appearances, the tech bros going, as well as just the people showing up with glitter on their faces. They're called sparkle ponies in burner culture. TST sort of reminds me of Sparkle Ponies a little bit, where they got into it to be in on the fun. They have the fear of missing out, the FOMO, as a multi-level marketing would call it. And I think that need to be part of the thick of things, be part of the party, is something really driving a lot of interest, for better or worse.
Oh, that sounds good to me. I remember when Burning Man was before the internet, when it was P.O. boxes. I'd get letters from the people at Burning
Was it
Man.
back when it was at a nude beach?
I'm not sure. I just remember the people who ran it would send postcards and stuff to me, invited me to do it. But that's what we're talking about: underground art, anarchy, and Satanism. That's all that stuff. Like I went to the first San Franciscan Satanic convention or whatever, book convention or whatever it was, and they have they're 18 under their belt now or 23 under their belt now. So all of this stuff in my generation was just popping. Burning Man, LaVey was still around. All this stuff was just popping, and so it was pure. And when anything bubbles up into the mainstream, it becomes tainted. By doing this stuff and talking with you about a lot of the satanic shows we've done, because I'm a multifaceted artist, I do this to hopefully someone younger will hear it and put this in the pop Satanism of today. But yes, I do see things just like you're saying as sparkly. I don't know what a sparkly pony is, but I've seen recent Burning Man stuff, and I sort of get it. I can assume, and I definitely see it like that. It's just like this isn't what it was. But for me, I feel like I want to defend it a bit or refocus people, refocus kids or younger adults, I should say, that are into this and attracted to it, because that's cool. You're not repelled from it. I like people who are attracted to this stuff. That's cool. And when the people are repelled from it, I know to stay away from them. That's why I say up front, like you asked if I'm a Satanist, I'm like, if you're a Christian, if I can say I'm a Satanist and you run away from me, good. That saved me some time. If you're a Christian, said, "Oh, that's too bad for you. You want to have a cup of coffee?" I mean, yeah, let's have a cup of coffee. Good. But so I like people who are attracted to it, and I just would value if they kept it as a philosophy and not a religion.
What would you do if some kid tweeted at you or direct messaged you to ask you some questions about Satanism because they saw some red flags in whatever flavor they were into?
It would depend on the day, the mood, and everything else. But in general, I try to respond. But I've let my email go for months on end because I'm depressed or stuff like that. So it just depends. And I stay pretty busy. So, I mean, all my time, I spend a lot of time communicating to you, stuff like that. So I can't give any more time. I just don't have it.
I'm a time vampire. I'm keeping those answers from being answered.
You're broadcasting and we're broadcasting. We do a lot of work on this. This is a lot of work, I think.
It definitely is. I think that a lot of the answers are hidden in plain sight for people, or the act of finding the answers for yourself is a big, important part of Satanism. It's not like talking to a priest at church.
Bingo. That's how those, like when we spoke about interviews and me hitting the road and getting that occult knowledge from people's mouth to my ear, it wasn't out of a book. And I think you're right about that. And that's also with, isn't it with Christianity or Catholicism or certain of those religions where you have to go on I forget, they have special names for it, but basically you have to travel.
Are you talking about seminaries?
No.
Or...
Like in certain religions, they have a period where you're supposed to travel and get wisdom.
Oh.
And even like the Mormons, they have a group of time where the young Mormon can go do
to
drugs.
A different country or whatever.
They can do drugs. They can do all the things they can't do as a Mormon.
Are you talking about the Rumspringas? Like what?
No.
Like Amish?
No. I'm not talking about anything specific. It's
Sorry.
often in many religions where you're supposed to go travel to get your wisdom. I think it's in Judaism, Christianity, Mormons, or the Amish. Amish I'm talking about. You're right. When I talk about the drug use, I'm talking about Amish. Yes, you were right about that. But I'm not talking about a lot of religions I've heard have that travel segment, like you're saying, like go out and see the world and see it with your philosophy in mind and see what you see. And I think that's a smart move. I don't hear that what you've just said is the first time I've heard that in a satanic conversation. Like go out and see the world and come back. Go out and see the world with a satanic philosophy and come back. I did that unintentional when I went on that road trip. I was like, and I said that up front, like I'm going to go on the road for a year and a half, and I'm going to test my philosophy. And that's where I was testing my philosophy. And I'd hear people, it was my listening tour. So I would listen to them, but my philosophy was there. It was my filter. And a lot of people had such input, they evolved my philosophy, my personal philosophy. And it was great. It was beautiful. And it made me a better person, a fuller person than I was. I'm less shallow.
So a writing that is very relevant to this one's a short one. It's called Choices. Is it the choices we make or the guides we run into along the way? And it feels like this is like spot on to that. I'm going to move on to another one because that one just on the spot came to mind. But the one that I've had here queued up is, before we get too far away from it, is because it's in a book, we practice it versus because it's in a book, we study it, add to it, understand it. There's a difference between blindly practicing the words of a poet and studying and adding to the words of a poet the pain of nostalgia and the pain of the formally educated who like being told what to do. Let's talk about that, because that sounds like that old school, new school, the new school referring to this idea of it being someone at a podium giving a presentation.
Yeah, I now that's not, I sent you my unfinished writing, so if it's a little jumbled, excuse me, please. But that's exactly what I see. Like someone who's went to school and is formally educated, they sort of push that on people and they expect it of you. And they use it to, they're the same as the religions use. They use it to have bias against the uneducated. Um, that's how I see that. Yeah, exactly. Why follow a book? Why not study it? Like people grab a book and they stop reading. I can't, I don't understand that was something that you're going to mold your life around. For me, I've studied this stuff to a great degree, and I see other people that don't. It just stifles their growth to just, take a book as law, like a Bible. It's just, fuck that.
Not just taking a book, but just digesting someone else's words without thinking about it. You're mindlessly eating ideas.
Yeah, it's sort of like, right, you just relate to it in a way where you just stop. And I can see that with music. Like you hear a cool song and it makes you think about a girl or a guy or a lover, and it makes you think about your old dog, and you just love that song. And anytime you hear it, you think about your old dog Spot. Well, that's really fucking neat. But that doesn't go with philosophies and religions. It does. I get it with some art. I get it. Like you relate to it somehow. That's how the artist tricked you and got you, or their heart spilled out and you felt it. That's cool. But that's not what this is. This is philosophy. We need to study and add to it, or study it and I understand that we can't add to it. We're just, we're waiting for someone to add to it so we can study some more. You don't always have to add, but you don't. I wouldn't take it as a religion. I'm just anti-religious minded. Even though I've become religious in love, I've fallen victim of being religious. And they say we have a worship circuit. Some scientists have said we have a worship circuit, so that means religion is natural. And I say to that, I think our worship circuit is something about mating, love, stuff like that, where we become religious in love. We become religious in love to protect a child, that's where people talk about unconditional love. I believe most love has conditions to it until you become religious about your child. Don't talk to my child that way. You can say that to me, but you can't say it to my child. And not much separates you from your child, but age. The child's still a human being. You're a human being, but you get religious in love. And I've been that, and that's been taken advantage of. But yeah, I don't like religious thinking usually. I mean, burgers. I'm religious over this burger right now.
When you're religious to something, you tend to grow blind to other things.
Right.
So if you're religious to that burger, you're going to be blind to this homemade spaghetti behind you.
Correct. And you become righteous. You're able to say, no, this is the best meal in Chicago. And people are looking at you like, motherfucker, I don't eat meat. But you're spouting off your big mouth saying it's right. It's righteous. You're righteous. And this is it. This is the be all end all. And you just sound like a fool at some point. You don't have this nuanced individual perspective. Yeah.
This is the best meal ever, sir. This is a cheesecake factory.
Yeah.
So at the end of this, Satanist can be defined simply in two parts. You had this writing that I almost read. I want to go back to this because it seems like it's a good time to talk about it, talking about blue cheese and the Cheesecake Factory. Here's some more basic. I have to wonder, did Penny Lane address Doug's work with Might is Right in the film, or his flirtation with fascism, in particular Caesar? Has she discussed the person footing the bill for the Satanic Temple and his blatant climb for political power? For many reasons, I doubt it. Are you comfortable talking about this now, or would you like to wait for after this season to discuss such a thing?
Well, there's not much to discuss beyond what you said. I would probably want to discuss it in our latter seasons as we get our guns back, like we get our footing back after this season. There's not, that's the truth of it. I've already said this in the first show, though. That's what we're ending with. Like the first show is like, like it's a garbage documentary. It's propaganda.
I've got a writing here that says, fear can drive a person to create chaos. the same chaos that they are afraid of.
Yeah.
What is the Aryan King afraid of?
Oh boy. What would Doogie be afraid of? He definitely projects he's not afraid of anything.
But I think he's afraid of certain kinds of people being smarter than him.
I don't know. I don't know about that. I think if Doug, if I were to say something that he's afraid of, to answer your question, it would probably be women. He's afraid of women and anyone who's not like him. He's afraid of people of color. He's afraid of women.
Do you think
And
he'd be
that's
as scared of me?
absolutely. He's afraid of people he doesn't understand. And so he's a white guy who hangs out with white guys, and he doesn't go beyond that. He doesn't leave that bubble. And that's what I found him to be scared of. Like, he's from Detroit, and you know, it can be scary there between colors at times. You know, it has been, and rightfully so. You know, that's a great Detroit in my day was a great illustration of bias against people of color. You had white people.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think that is part of a regional thing he carries with him.
I think that also that privilege of, or those expectations of, I pushed all the buttons, so therefore I get the reward, comes from that structure. Detroit is a very specific case of those set up to fail for some people.
Yeah. Now I'm from Chicago. We land of Lincoln. This is where LaVey was born, and we uplift people. You know, we're a different place. This is a whole different vibe, and I carry that vibe with me.
Perhaps the fear of women, it's interesting you mentioned that, as the women that he surrounds himself with are quite fungible. They're kind of the same women. And,
Right.
you know, no offense to you girls. I don't know any of you. You know, cash me outside. Let's become friends. Stop hanging out with someone who doesn't respect you. But at the same time, that's quite interesting. I want to get away from this topic and close out with some. Huh?
I'm not afraid of women, and I surround myself with a lot of different people. So,
Yes, definitely. And digging into your history, we've definitely seen that you have surrounded yourself with a myriad of people, and like quite a handful of, like, I was actually surprised how many Black people you have experiences with, not just the family you lived with. And it seems like you kind of fall into these circumstances that are almost colorblind because you have no pretense. You're not coming into something afraid of certain people and avoiding them, but rather just kind of metaphorically sitting in a chair and letting whoever comes in the door come in and sit and talk to you.
Oh yeah, and that might be a Chicago thing too. I'm not really sure, but I know coming back home has really helped me ground again. Where I'm like, oh yeah, hey dude, what's happening? How you doing? You know, and it's just that's how it is, and you just have respect that you want. You know, it's just a mutual respect thing, and I don't the lack of pretense I have. I don't really see. I don't understand that, but it's just me. Other people see it in me, so I'm not arguing about it, but. I'm growing up. I want to have pretense. No, I don't know if I do. I just
maybe have pretense about your choices of food. Maybe have pretense about those things that matter, not necessarily people, because those people have their own free will to behave outside of the expectations that someone may have of them.
Yeah. And so for me, that's exactly. But I have a childlike mind. I'm just wondrous. I'm like like that artist Anarch. You know, I'm like wondrous. So someone different than me walks in, I am lit up. Like, look at that fucking sweater. I've never seen. You know, like they can be dressed different, whatever. I'm like, whoa, wow, what a fucking cool. You know, like that's cool. I want to be next to them. I want to talk to them. I don't want to talk to people who look like me. I do, but but I'm bored. I'm excited. I want to go towards excitement and joy and fun and freedom and liberty. And that's how I see Satanism, is that like going after the unknown, going after excitement. Like our relationship's been exciting for me. We've shared cultural things. It's been really fucking exciting. And you know, I mean, I can't give too much away about you right now until the next episode, but you're a musician, which I'm not. So it's exciting to see a prodigy drop down music. Like, I'm like, holy fuck, it's like magic to me, you know, and that's what life's about. That's what life's about to me.
I think enjoying each other, what you have to bring to the table as another human, is quite satanic. It's an indulgence. And I think that the term indulging is sort of getting lost in Satanism.
Yeah. Yeah. I think now, and I know this is dad stuff, but Danzig, when he started his record label, it was
You know
called,
what? Let's not talk shit about Danzig. I love Danzig.
Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on, horses. You cut me off now. But I never talk shit about Danzig. I tell people that don't make Danzig jokes. No, when he started, I'm saying I'm giving him props.
Okay.
And you look up Danzig on the internet, screen printing. The motherfucker's screen printing a huge 8-foot poster on the floor on his knees. The motherfucker's an artist, hardcore underground artist. So when he started his first DIY label back in the day when Fugazi, Minor Threat was doing all that, he had his label is called Evil Live. So evil is live spelled backwards. And that's the concept there. And I really think that's Satanism. It's live, it's evil, live spelled backwards. Like, it's cool, like live, have fun, pleasure of the flesh, respect. War is not fun. So people are always like what was Boyd Rice have? Total war, dun 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 dun. Don't dipshit guy. You know, it's like, who wants total war in the world? Like, only a dipshit like you, Boyd. Like, fuck off. I want total fun. I'm gonna mock Boyd Rice.
Total fun.
Boom, boom, play those dumb drums. Boom, total fun. Dun dun dun. Total fun. Because that's, I don't know. I'm with. Anyway, I'm getting on a rant.
That's a pretty good rant there. I can't also help but feel like Boyd Rice comes from layers of privilege as well.
Got that right.
That, you know, the art, it's the usurper artist. It's a class thing.
Absolutely. And it's hard for poor people not to look up to people with privilege, because they want that. They want what Boyd projects, which is money or privilege. So they're like, yeah, he's great. He's better than me. Some people see it like that. Like, your insecurity level hit. He's better than me, so I might as well follow what he says, even though it's just luck. It's just privilege. It's just the luck of the zip code. It's just the luck of the parents. And you can be just as good as this person or better if you just pick yourself up and keep trying. That's it. You can compete with a rich person. You can do it. Just keep trying. Make bad artwork and try again. Make bad music and keep trying. You know, write bad poetry and keep trying. Like, keep going, struggle. There it is. There's beauty in that. You can do it. That's it.
It's another challenge to the self by doing that. Facing your mistakes is hard in 2020. We're surrounded by the need to be perfect all the time on the internet, and it's disgusting. And I think that it's important to make those mistakes and look at that. How can you grow if no one's ever told you this is terrible, or told you it could be better? Why can't it be better?
Right. If you're open to hearing criticism, see, that's a lot of people are closed off that and take it as you're making fun of me. But like, I'm open to criticism. Like, let's go. Tell me. Well, you just gave me some notes before we aired. And I was like, oh, great notes. And it was a great way to do it. You are a teacher anyway, so you know how to do that. Like, you cushion it with, if you know, I'm going to give you some criticism if you want it, you know, and that's nice. That's cool. But That's where I love working with artists. I've had mentors that are like, no, you're worried too much. Quit worrying, just do it, or do this. One good advice from a mentor was like, don't get the cheap tools when you're buying a tool. You might work with cheap paints or cheap brushes, but like a wood burner, don't get the cheap one. Get the nice one. You're taking this seriously, so don't treat it like a hobby. And I was like, oh, that's a good advice. Don't treat what you're doing like all the hobbyists that you're surrounded by. Treat it like an artist. Treat it like a professional. Act like a professional, and you'll be treated like a professional. And so I started to do that stuff, like making professional business cards and going out there and presenting I'm living in a car and I'm presenting myself as a professional. Even though when I look back at myself, I'm laughing at myself. There's this guy, living in a car acting like, hi, I'm here to sell ads. And I was talking to this one guy's in the band Broken Hope, death metal band in Chicago. And Jeremy, the lead singer of Broken Hope, when I knew him 30 years ago, me and him are short. We're not the tallest guys. We're not short, but we're not the tallest guys. And so Jeremy would walk into these places when I'm doing my zine, and he was just as serious and professional as me. But he's a death metal guy with long hair, and he'd walk in with a briefcase. And he'd see me, he's like, oh, you're here, I got my demo. And he'd pop open his briefcase, give me a PR kit, a demo, a sticker, shut his briefcase. He took himself seriously. And just a couple months ago, he's in Tokyo, or he's flowing all over the country to play in Broken Hope still. He took himself seriously, and he's one of the only bands from that era still kicking around. I don't know. I think there's something.
That's really good. And I think that taking yourself seriously is far more valuable than giving a polished, perfect image that's saccharine or half-baked, even if you don't realize it. And I think that this is something that's definitely getting exploited by these newer schools of thought there to force, control people. Is this a lot of these people getting suckered in are not familiar with what true academics is, or true professionalism, true expertise. And so this is their first brush with these things. And so they just hold on to this clout someone has and take it as word of law.
And they come in insecure, and they listen to these visceral rules like wear all black or wear this T-shirt and you'll be cool, you're fit in with us. And then when their goals aren't met with a simple T-shirt or whatever, their insecurity rises. That doesn't help them. It hurts them to project themselves as perfect all the time.
Yes.
We're flawed. You have to be able to fall down and brush yourself off. You can't go, I didn't fall. You didn't see me fall. That's a rigged video. I never fell. It's like when we see Trump do that stuff, it's like, dude, you fell.
Yes. And I think that those people don't realize that experts and professionals make mistakes, and they make mistakes to succeed. Like, someone pats someone on the back that they like and say, oh, he's just trying. But then, a lawyer slips up and then they try to ruin them and stop their job or something like that. And I think that undervaluing true experts, it's a form of anti-intellectualism in disguise of intellectualism.
Yes, and yes. There's also something I want to add. I don't know if it's to that, but it's like the idea of like manipulation or getting what you want. Some of that is about asking. People want to tell people what to do. And I'm on the side of Satanism where you ask. And I'm also on the side where you tell a truth. Or as you've told me you do, you find a way to tell someone something without telling them the ugly truth a lot of times. Like someone will say, well, how'd you like my book? Oh, the cover's great. The cover is really, the colors are great. And I'm like, oh, you motherfucker. Like, I hear it. Like, you're not telling me how great it is. You're not telling me to change your life. You just tell me the colors are great. Yeah, okay. But not that you've said that to me, but I've heard that recently. And I'm like, what does that mean? Are you telling me, you're not lying to me, but you're not telling me all your thoughts, which is fine.
I think that for myself as a cultural influence, omission is a very Japanese trait.
Is that a Shinto?
No, I think that's generally Japanese, like, dialogue, Japanese culture. It's something that I've kind of integrated in my life because sometimes it avoids problem. And for myself, I feel like if it's harmful to say something negative, it's not worth saying. But if it's something that helps the person, it's the kindest thing you can do.
I'm following. I like that lead. And as far as we got to add that to the satanic books, that's a good one. I think that's true. If we're trying to uplift humanity and get them to the highest level they can get in a stratification sense, it's not about putting people down. And part of LaVey's thing is about animals, like don't harm any animals. But you'll hear Satanists go off all the time about fuck humans, kill humans, I hate humans, kill them. And it's like,
yeah.
where did you miss the point that you're an animal? You fool. Like this is the concept is about to up the stratification idea is there. It solidifies things like for the point that if you're not able to get up to that level, you just have to sort of sit at yours and be cool about it. But we're all about trying to reach our highest level, whatever that is. I cannot outrun a lot of people. I'm not a runner, so I'm going to be at the end of the race. But why can't I just run with these people to have fun? There's the joy of it there. We all ran this race, and they came in and they did a mile in 3 minutes, and I did it in an hour. There's no reason to make fun of me for that, that's just where I fit on the stratification of runners. But did I have fun? Yes. Was it fun to me? Yes, because it becomes fun then. And that's part of how I see, what you're talking about is, it's not going to help me saying this. It's going to hurt. So why say it? And I'm with you. You're enlightening. You're trying to lift versus
right. And lifting someone is something else that I think it's misconstrued in these circles too, where there is such thing as encouraging delusion, which sometimes happens too, where people applaud people for the sake of being nice, and it's harming other people by encouraging them. Or it feels unnecessary to say anything because it's just going to make them worse.
Well, I understand that in a crowd, like in a broad sense, but then I look at it as an individual sense. And like, let's say my nephew did something that I see is not the greatest. Okay. I'm going to do something very much like you're saying, like, hey, dude, that was great, man. Good try. You maybe want to do this, this, and this to make it a little better. You know what I mean? I'm going to applaud him because I'm trying to uplift him. But at the same time, I'll probably be honest about it. But I know what you're saying like that. Isn't that I've heard recently about the trophy parents, or they give their kid a trophy for
It's not so much, actually. I mean more of the nailed it culture where people, oh, hey, look at this that I made. And it is just, it's laughable. A laughable product or laughable efforts that it's someone who's just creatively stunted. They're not quite there yet, but everyone's already telling them, oh, wow, this is so good, because they want to be that person's friend. And I don't think that's very helpful to anyone, regardless of what they believe in. And I feel like that culture of like everyone's huggy kissy with each other is quite dangerous. To me, it's a good thing to be supportive of each other, but I don't think it's supportive if someone has a booger on their face to tell them that they look perfect.
Oh, yeah, I get lies are no good. It's on the other side of things. That's right. Those lies are on the other side of things. It's like I get what you're saying now. So when I think of it as artist thing, I try to phrase my critique or help in a way that's kind. Not
yes,
like that's
you can
shit.
Be kind about it.
My nephew, I was just working with him. I didn't say that looks like shit. I'm like, here, I'm going to show you some pictures of some artists that'll give you some clues as to how to fill up that blank space. Give you some suggestions, I said. Here's some, and I sent him a bunch of artists that I thought he could learn something from. And so, but I also see his stuff as very naive, or not naive, but starter. He's a starter. He's starting to, he wants
Novice.
Novice, there you go. It's novice, and he wants more, and he's trying to learn. So I like that he's struggling to understand. He's not like, if I tell him that, like, hey, here's some artists. I don't need that. I know what I'm doing. Those people are on that side too, of the liars, the dark the mentally ill Satanist, all that stuff is like, yeah, stay the fuck over there, stubborn, you know. But as an artist, like, yeah, you're willing to listen to that. I get what you're saying. Yeah, we're saying, okay.
Yes. I'm glad the booger helped you along. I didn't want to say anything specific to people because I feel like it would be seen as not just unkind, but it could be construed as pointed because it probably would be pointed if I said it about someone. So,
no, but yeah, not only, like I said earlier, like asking questions is a form of being able to manipulate or get what you want, get your needs met. But also, truth is, lies don't do that. Most people can feel a lie between each other. You can feel it, you can sense it, you could smell it. There's probably a chemical reaction that goes off that we don't even understand yet that tells us you're lying to me. Beyond your blinks, beyond how Italians, like I was taught to read a lie on a face. Like, oh, this is the 5 ways you read a lie. There's probably a chemical reaction when you're in front of someone, a fear, something that's coming off you when you lie. So part of it is to tell the truth, much like yourself, like you find a truth to tell so you don't have to say ugly truth, but you still don't lie. And I'm with you on that. Like, there's no reason to bullshit people. It doesn't help anything.
It's generally a waste of energy to be unkind for no reason at all. And I think this goes along the lines of, like, do no harm, which is it's within occultism, it's within Satanism, and look at the medical community. Do no harm is the oath that doctors take, and they've got the double snake staff going on.
Yeah, and you definitely like that when you go to a hospital. So, the Satanist that's on the other end of things that I see on the other end of the people we've discussed, they might argue that question. They might argue with this, but then they want someone to be very unbiased when they go into a hospital. Please ignore the Baphomet tattoo on my chest. I need the bullet pulled out. And doctors in general do. There are people who biases do affect everyone.
How would you feel if you had lymphoma and your doctor said, "Oh, you're fine. Yes, queen. You do you."
Right. I've had doctors ask me about my Baphomet tattoo, like, and they asked me, "I'm going to ask you about this tattoo here, but I'm asking you because I want to know if you're in blood rituals or something like that." Like they're asking me for medical reasons.
That's a fair question.
Right. And then when they explain it like that, and it's been explained to me twice, like, I'm just trying to figure out how you practice this.
They have to definitely ask. They have to be sensitive to demographics because there are people who can't do certain things or are exposed to certain things. Absolutely.
Right. And they want to know about my illness. They want to know if I've done something to create this situation.
Yes.
Versus, So I'm okay with that question for sure. But it wasn't, but I did also worry me, like, man, what if I get some crazy Christian doctor some days? Like, I got to snip your balls off. I had that once.
What do you mean?
I had a doctor. I went in for my appendix. I'm laying down, and I'm in a bad hospital in Chicago, the closest one I was to. And there was a doctor there, and he kept he's like, "Your balls are twisted. That's why you're in such pain. Your balls are twisted in some way." And he kept selling it like this, and he wouldn't give me any fucking painkillers. And a couple nurses came up to me, and I could tell them, they're like, "It's okay." And they were looking at me like, and they kept talking to the doctor, like, "Give him some painkillers." And he wouldn't. So he was like not liking my makeup.
He wanted you to be in more pain because he had a prejudice.
Yes.
I've had that happen for a different reason, but yes, I know what you mean.
And so the shift changed, and these doctors ran in and got me. And they yelled at him. They're like, "Get the fuck, get out of here. What are you doing? This is standard classic appendix. You can read this across the room." And they grab me and throw me into surgery. And, I live, of course. And I see that fucking doctor that saved my life like 5 years later in an airport. And I see him, and I'm like, "Dude, you work in Chicago?" And he's like, "Yeah." And we're in an airport. And I'm like, "Are you a doctor?" He's like, "Yeah." And I go, "You saved my life." And he's with some lady, and I'm like, "This guy saved my life. Really, he's the coolest man in the world to me." And he just laughed and walked off. But anyway, there's my story there.
That's a really unfortunate. I'm sorry about that, but that's a fantastic kind of tie-in with do no harm, and as well as the stigma that that you may have as a public Satanist, but also as a tattooed Satanist. Even if you take off the Baphomet necklace, you still have a tattoo.
I have the mark of the devil on me. That's right.
And I think that the way you took it, I hope that if you're listening to this looking for some dirt or something to be against, I hope you at least take this as a learning moment. Because this is something also within Satanism that I wish would sort of stop, because it gives me contempt for it, is this idea that you feel like you have a target on your back at all times, when sometimes it's just the pretense, the way you're taking something. It's easy to feel discriminated against because someone asks you, hey, I got to ask you about your tattoo, and you feel like the doctor is judging you because that gives you a lot of upvotes and likes on the internet. But at the same time, as you put it, it was for diagnostic reasons he needed to. But then on the other side, you were discriminated against by another doctor.
Right. It's a very nuanced situation, and you're right. Don't put it out there. Don't cry wolf so much that no one responds anymore.
I don't think it's very satanic to do that.
Well, I mean, I was run out of a town, so I wish people would have stuck up for me at that time. It was a victimization based on Satanism. And
yes.
Like the West Memphis Three were put in prison because of it. So I think at some point you got to call a spade a spade. And I think when you're being harassed because of your beliefs, it's wrong. And pretty much no matter what those beliefs are. But I think like crying it all the time, like I went to Target and they, all this shit that is inconsequential. I'm with you on that. Like people are always playing the victim or playing something that it's like takes the story out of the real victims or the real tragedies of people who are pushing forward. As a public Satanist, it's a hard life a lot of times. I know that. I talked to Stanton LaVey about that recently. It's not an easy life, but we have fun the best we can, but there are people who definitely hold this stuff against us, and we don't feel that's good in the world. We think that's wrong in the world, our ideal world we would have. Things wouldn't be held against people except their actions would, not their thoughts. Their actions would.
I think it's quite different to be run out of a town the way you did, or the way that doctor treated you, versus feeling like you need the ACLU because you couldn't view adult content at work or something like that, and you decide to use your religion or your philosophies as a crutch, whereas you had no pretense. Here we go again. This feels like this is the ongoing theme of our 3 seasons is, folks, have no pretense.
There you go.
So in closing, let's kind of wrap this up here. I want to know if there's anything that needs to be said that we haven't said yet regarding Satanism that you have felt the need to say for a while.
No, I think yes, there will be, and we'll do that in other shows, or
Okay.
I'll do it in another book, or The Joys of Satanism talks a lot about stuff that I've recently thought about after 30 years. So The Joys of Satanism is a good start, and I'll probably put out a part 2 to that or other writings, and we will discuss this stuff in the future, I know. So I think, as I was saying up front, like just do the best you can, pick yourself up and keep trying, and have as much fun in this painful world as you can, because it can be very painful. Don't let the pain get you down, or let it get you down and heal, and have as much fun as you can while you're here. That's all I can think of is, have as much fun. And I think that fun, it comes with respecting life and respecting humanity and respecting animals and respecting trees and all those things that we're tied to. We're all one. I think that's true in a certain sense. To think you're more than tree food is to think wrong. We are tree food, and we serve the tree. They are the alpha. They are the apex predator. The sea is the apex predator. You are not. So when you think you are the apex predator just because you can shoot an eagle or kill a rhino, you are mistaken. We all are victims to the tree and the sea. And we need to respect those kind of real boundaries, not the fake ones we project.
Final question. What are the top recommended reading as a mere suggestion, would you say, in 2020 for anyone who decided to read a book?
Jardowski's Psychomagic. Jardowski has a great book out, so there's one. I like that. Boy, recent stuff. Well, my Joy of Satanism, but I've already said that, of course, just anything I've done. No, I'm joking. That's what I could think of. Is like Jardowski, I think, is just a wonderful living master, a cult master, and just a master. He's a magician and he's an artist. He's an anarchist. He's like everything we spoke about. He's an artist, an anarchist, and an occultist, all in one person. He's someone to study. That is a beautiful being inside and out. Beautiful being. He's really wonderful. That's what I would suggest off the top of my head. I'm sure there's others out there, but,
What about works of fiction, such as cinema?
Lars von Trier. Anything Lars von Trier's made is very satanic.
I want to add to it Problem Child, which we did a Movie Magic Circle episode of. That was one of the most satanic movies I've seen in a long time that I didn't expect to be satanic.
Okay, and that's funny. You want to talk about that? Then we did another Movie Magic Circle about Star Wars, and I brought Star Wars up to Anton LaVey and told him I felt like Star Wars was very much everything I'd read by him put into film. It was very satanic, Darth, all this. And he said a lot of people have been influenced by my work. A lot of writing has been influenced by my work. He agreed with me. He said, yeah, I could see that. He had seen Star Wars. So Star Wars is a favorite of mine. It's good versus evil, all this kind of, it's this light versus dark. It's a very typical story, I guess. But I see Satanism as a very typical story, almost light versus dark, stuff like that. Strength versus weakness. People who are feeding off the weak are disgusting. People who are looking to enlighten people and lift them up are really cool and part of the reason we are here today. All those cool things. And so, but Lars von Trier, modern 2020, well, maybe he's not modern, but he knocks it out the fucking park. Lars von Trier understands the dark side of human beings and how they're struggling for joy. Wow.
Thank you for listening. Please subscribe and tune in to our next episode wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts. You can find us at Speak of the Devil Pod on Twitter and contact us at speakofthedevilpod@gmail.com. For Shane's artwork or to support his endeavors, please visit ShaneBugby.com or find him on Twitter at ShaneBugby. I've been Nannerl. Have a good one.
Oh, and ShaneIsTheDevil.com.